The Lindbergh baby, the assassination attempt of the Pope, declaring war on Mexico. Well, Jimmy's here. It can only mean one thing. This Week in History. Well, hello there. How nice of you to join us for another episode of the Middle Country Public Library podcast. I'm Sal DiVincenzo here with my fabulous colleague, Jim Ward.
Hello.
And Jim is here because it's another This Week in History. So
Yes.
We're very excited about it. These are very popular episodes. And if you want to watch older episodes of This Week in History, stay tuned and we'll tell you how to do that later on. But first,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
what week are we concentrating on this week?
This week. Literally this week.
This week.
May 11th to May 17th.
11th to 17th.
Yes.
All right, let's jump right in.
Let's jump in.
I have no idea what he's talking about this week. I didn't even take a peek.
There's actually a
just those
wide-
three things that I mentioned.
It's wide-ranging.
Wide-ranging?
Now, I will say there is civil war in here.
Of course there's civil war.
But of course, there's always civil war.
Why
in my
wouldn't
stuff,
there be
so,
civil war?
you know. But let's get
Why?
started. Let's jump right in.
All right, very good.
All right, May 11th, 1858, Minnesota enters the Union as the 32nd state.
All right.
And that's
there you
just
go.
prior to the Civil War.
Minnesota, and like 2 days later, they built them all.
The biggest one in
Biggest
America.
one in
right?
America. No, I'm just kidding.
So then May 11th, 1862, to prevent its capture by Union forces advancing in Virginia, the Confederate ironclad Merrimack was destroyed by the Confederate Navy. In March, the Merrimack had fought the Union ironclad, the Monitor. Remember
Okay.
the Monitor versus the Merrimack?
The Monitor versus the Merrimack.
Yep, that was the
Okay.
famous ironclad battle.
Yes.
They fought that to a draw, and then naval warfare was thus changed forever, making wooden ships obsolete.
That's right. Why have wooden ships when you can?
I mean, if you can have iron, why not? You know,
Absolutely.
better quality.
Yeah.
And clearly, because they weren't able to destroy each other, that just shows you.
Plus, you can cook on it too.
Exactly. It's a two-prong, thing there.
Just season it a little bit, and ready to go. All right.
All right. Then May 11th, 1864, a dismounted Union trooper fatally wounds Jeb Stuart, one of the South's most well-known generals. He was their head cavalry general. He actually died the next day. This was a serious blow to Robert E. Lee. His leadership was part of the reason that Confederates had such a superior cavalry in Virginia during most of the war. But he was caught by surprise in 1863 at the Battle of Brandy Station. This was during the march up to try to invade the North, and he also failed to provide Lee with crucial information at Gettysburg. But nevertheless, besides those two things, he was very crucial to Robert E. Lee and the Confederate Army. So that was a big blow to the Confederate Army.
Yeah. It's interesting, these little tiny things that are not as popular as the bigger things in the Civil War really actually did make a difference in a lot of cases.
And just something not simple, but something like that, one person dying can change the whole trajectory,
change the course of history.
Then we come to May 11th, 1934. A massive storm sends millions of tons of topsoil flying across America from the parched Great Plains region of the United States as far east as New York, Boston, and Atlanta.
Really?
And just to give some backstory to this, during the 1920s, wheat production increased by 300%, causing a glut in the market. By 1931, that year, a severe drought spread across the region. And as crops died, wind began to carry the dust from the overplowed and overgrazed lands. And the number of dust storms reported were from 14 in 1932 to 28 in 1933.
Doubled.
And the following year, the storms decreased in frequency but increased in intensity, culminating in the most severe storm yet in May 1934.
Wow, I had no idea.
Over the period of 2 days, high-level winds caught and carried some 350 million tons of silt all the way from the northern plains to the eastern seaboard.
Wow.
And according to the New York Times, quote, dust lodged itself in the eyes and throats of weeping and coughing New Yorkers. Can you imagine that? All the way from the Great Plains. And even some ships 300 miles offshore caught some dust on their decks. So
That's
very,
crazy.
very wild stuff.
Definitely wild stuff.
And then, of course, this was like the Dust Bowl
Yes.
era. So
Yeah,
this
Dust
was
Bowl,
like
yeah.
that. This was that whole
the
time
culmination
period.
of
Yeah.
it was this terrible dust.
So that is the awful thing that happened on May 11th,
May 11th, okay.
1934.
Okay.
There would be another massive storm on April 14th, 1935, known as Black Sunday. That brought even more attention to the desperate situation in the Great Plains.
Wow.
And that's when reporter Robert Geiger called it the Dust Bowl.
The Dust Bowl. Okay. So that's where we get our stuff from.
That's where we get the coining of the term.
Someone coins a term and then it sticks with it.
Yep.
All right.
And then May 11th, 1947, the B.F. Goodrich Company of Akron, Ohio, announced it's developed a tubeless tire.
Oh, nice.
I don't really know much about tires, so I'm not sure what
but
that...
I think all tires are tubeless now, right?
I guess so.
I guess they are,
Yeah,
right?
I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this apparently was a technological innovation that would make automobiles safer and more efficient. The culmination of more than 3 years of engineering, the tubeless tire effectively eliminated the inner tube, trapping the pressurized air within the tire walls themselves. By reinforcing those walls, the company claimed they were able to combine the puncture sealing features of inner tubes with an improved ease of riding, high resistance to bruising, and superior retention of air pressure. I'll be honest, I have no idea what that all means.
Yeah, well, I kind of feel like, in the back of my head when I was a kid, I had something that did have a tube in the tire, and I'm thinking it was probably maybe either a toy car that I can drive around, or it was one of my first bicycles.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was a tube, a black tube inside the tire, and the where the air went stuck out of a hole in the rubber part of the tire.
Right.
So when you were blowing it up, you were just blowing up the tube inside, not the tire itself. But now
So interesting.
we do the tire.
See, I didn't even know all that.
All right, there you go.
I don't know how bad that is at 43 that I didn't know that.
No, it's a unique thing. I mean, I didn't know about the silt. So,
There you go. See, silt, 300 miles offshore.
We're learning things today on the podcast.
And then we come to May 11th, 1969. During the Vietnam War, the Battle of Hamburger Hill began, which I believe was also a movie in the 80s depicting this. While attempting to seize the Dong Ap Bia Mountain, U.S. troops repeatedly scaled the hill over a 10-day period and engaged in bloody hand-to-hand combat with the North Vietnamese. After finally securing the objective, American military staff decided to abandon their position, and then the North Vietnamese retook it shortly thereafter. So the battle highlighted the futility of the overall American military strategy.
All this happening in history just on this first day we're talking about.
That's
May 11th.
That's 3 pages of history.
Right there. Yeah.
And now we move on to May 12th.
Okay, May 12th.
We're going to go back about 200 years, though.
All right, there you go.
So May 12th of 1780, after a siege that began on April 2nd, 1780, Americans suffered their worst defeat of the Revolution on May 12th, 1780, with the unconditional surrender of Major General Benjamin Lincoln. Not sure if that's a relation to Abraham, to British Lieutenant General Sir Henry Clinton and his army of 10,000 at Charleston, South Carolina. With the victory, the British captured more than 3,000 patriots and a great quantity of munitions and equipment, losing only 250 men killed and wounded in the process. Confident of British control in the South, Lieutenant General Clinton sailed north to New York after the victory, having learned of an impending French expedition to the British-occupied northern state. He left General General Charles Cornwallis in command of 8,300 British soldiers in the South, and that eventually he would be the one surrendering to the gentleman Benjamin Lincoln.
Interesting.
To effectively end the American Revolution.
Wow.
At Yorktown.
Yorktown.
Yep.
Of course. Yes. If you've listened to the Hamilton soundtrack, you know that was a big deal.
I mean, I saw it once on Netflix.
Yeah.
All right. Then this is a cool one I thought was very interesting. May 12th, 1903. President Theodore Roosevelt's trip to San Francisco is captured on moving picture film, making him one of the first presidents to have an official activity recorded in that medium.
Look at that.
See that?
And now presidents can't go without it.
Yeah, they used to be able to hide, but no more.
Not anymore. Now they use it as a tool.
Yeah. So the cameraman was named H.J. Miles. He filmed the president while riding in a parade in his honor. The resulting short movie was titled The President's Carriage and was later played on Nickelodeons in arcades across America.
Yes. Do you know what a Nickelodeon is?
Isn't that the thing where you had to look in
you put the coin in and you watch, and the film played.
Yeah, that's I also know that from the movie Titanic.
Yes,
he would talk about watching Nickelodeons.
Yes, put another nickel in the Nickelodeon. Music. It's a song. Yeah.
That makes so much more sense.
I'm really dating myself here.
Then
I did not watch Nickelodeons when I was a kid. I'm not that old.
Sal, be honest now. No. Then we come to May 12th, 1932. The body of aviation hero Charles Lindbergh's baby is found on May 12th, 1932, more than 2 months after he was kidnapped from his family's home at Hopewell, New Jersey.
Sad.
Yep. But finally was found.
Yeah.
May 12th, 1949, Soviet Russia lifted its blockade of Berlin. The blockade had begun on June 24th, 1948, and resulted in the Berlin airlift. For 462 days, American and British planes flew about 278,000 flights, delivering 2.3 million tons of food, coal, and medical supplies to 2 million isolated West Berliners.
Wow.
So, and I guess the Germans, or not the Germans, the Russians were trying to block that, and eventually they acquiesced.
Yes. What year is that?
That was 1949.
1949. Okay.
Yep. Isn't that something?
Something.
And then May 13th, 1846, at the request of President James K. Polk, Congress declared war on Mexico. The controversial struggle eventually cost the lives of 11,300 U.S. soldiers and resulted in the annexation of lands that became parts of Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, Utah, and Colorado. And the war ended in 1848 with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. I love saying that.
Yes.
It's fun to say.
Guadalupe. Hidalgo.
And then May 13th, 1919, during the second week of that month, the recently arrived German delegation to the Versailles Peace Conference convened in Paris, and they had to pore over the copies of that treaty, the Treaty of Versailles. And one of the things that they really objected to in that was that Article 231, which forced Germany to accept sole blame for the war in order to justify the reparations against them. They were given a deadline of June 16th to accept the terms. This was later extended to June 23rd, and pressured by the Allies and thrown into confusion by the crisis at home, the Germans gave in and accepted the terms at 5:40 p.m. on May 23rd. It was eventually signed June 28th, 1919. Meanwhile, opposition to the treaty and that article, which was seen as a symbol of the injustice and harshness of the whole document, festered within Germany, and as the years passed, full-blown hatred slowly settled into smoldering resentment of the treaty, and of course, this would lead to the Second World War.
Yeah, they were like,
and Hitler invading all these countries.
That thing we did before, let's try it again.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. This is why, whether it's stranger than fiction, right? Stranger than fiction, is that the saying?
Yeah. Yeah, like true life is stranger than fiction.
Something like that, yeah. Then we come
know this stuff as librarians, but we don't.
We know how to find the information. We don't know everything. That's a common misconception.
Yes, that we know everything. We don't.
We don't sit and read books while we're on desk.
Yes, we can't.
So May 13th, 1940, Winston Churchill takes the helm as Great Britain's new prime minister.
Yes.
He assures Parliament that his new policy will consist of nothing less than, quote, to wage war by sea, land, and air with all our might and with all the strength that God can give us, to wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalog of human crime.
Yeah, and he knew how to speak.
He was a great speaker.
He was a great speaker.
And emphasizing that Britain's aim was simply victory, victory at all costs, victory in spite of terror, victory however long and hard the road may be. And that very evening, Churchill was informed that Britain would need 60 fighter squadrons to defend British soil against a German attack. It only had 39.
Wow.
So, and now we come to May 13th, 1981. Do you remember this at all?
May 13th, 1981. Oh, is this when Michael Jackson did the moonwalk?
That is not. I don't know if he did that day, but but no, not as fun as that. Pope John Paul II was shot twice at close range while riding in an open automobile in St. Peter's Square in Rome. 2 other persons were also wounded. An escaped terrorist already under sentence of death for murder of a Turkish journalist, was immediately arrested and later convicted of attempted murder. The Pope was recovered and later held a private meeting with the would-be assassin and then publicly forgave him. What a man.
What a man, let me tell you.
I don't think I'd be able to do that, but I'm not the Pope, so.
Yeah, he forgave them, and then they grabbed him and they took him away.
It's like, and you're in jail for the rest of your life. All right, then May 14th, 1607. You don't hear me go back that far.
You don't go back that far, Jimmy.
Never usually back that far.
Oh, boy.
The first permanent English settlement in America was established at Jamestown, Virginia.
Jamestown.
Yeah.
We learned about this in school. Did you ever make, like, the Jamestown diorama? Did you ever have to make that?
No, I don't think I did.
When I was a kid, we had to make the Jamestown diorama. So, like an actual, like, little model. And I remember having to put dirt in there, and you put the little people in the little thing. Yeah.
I went to Catholic school. We didn't have things like that.
Yeah, I'm sure not. No. You learned a lot of different things in Catholic school.
Yeah, I didn't learn that. And then May 14th, 1787, delegates to the Constitutional Convention can start to assemble in Philadelphia, and they confront a daunting task: the peaceful overthrow of the new American government as defined by the Articles of Confederation. Although the convention was originally supposed to begin on May 14th, James Madison reported that only a small number had assembled, and so the meetings had to be pushed back until May 25th, when a sufficient quorum of the participating states, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia had arrived.
Yeah, of course. You know, they just couldn't hop on like a flight, and just go. No, really, right? I mean, on horseback. It took, it's like, we're having a meeting. Okay, I'll be there in 3 weeks.
They're like, what is that? I'll take the red eye.
I'll be there in a month and a half, and then we can start.
Yeah. And now we go a little bit forward. May 14th, 1796, the smallpox vaccine was developed by Dr. Edward Jenner, a physician in rural England. He coined the term vaccination for the new procedure of injecting a milder form of the disease into healthy persons, resulting in immunity. And within 18 months, 12,000 people in England had been vaccinated, and the number of smallpox deaths dropped by 2/3.
Wow. Originally he wanted to call it pointy ouch. He said, pointy ouch? No.
He's like, that just doesn't roll off the tongue.
Doesn't roll. Vaccinate. Okay,
vaccinate. Yeah, vaccine. That sounds good. Right. I always wonder how those discussions took place,
It must be some Latin word or something they use.
Sure.
They always use those Latin words.
They always have to do Latin.
Yeah.
So May 14th, 1804, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark departed St. Louis on their expedition to explore the Northwest. They arrived at the Pacific coast of Oregon in November 1805 and returned to St. Louis in September of 1806, completing a journey of about 6,000 miles. And that was exploring the new Louisiana Purchase from the previous few years. And they explored it all. They identified animals and
again,
trees
departed 1 year, returned multiple years later.
Well, if they departed, that's like 2 years, 2.5 years.
Yes. Well, it was an expedition, right?
Well, true. You don't just
get your money's worth.
They wanted to make sure they documented everything.
Did we go down this street here? No.
What about this little path here? May 14th, 1904, the third Olympiad of the modern era and the first Olympic Games to be held in the United States opens in St. Louis, Missouri.
1904.
Yeah.
Wow. That's much later than I thought.
Right? Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Then May 14th, 1948, in Tel Aviv, Jewish Agency Chairman David Ben-Gurion proclaims the State of Israel, establishing the first Jewish state in 2,000 years, and Ben-Gurion becomes Israel's first premier.
First premier.
And I love this one. I know you're going to love this one, too.
All right.
May 14th, 1998. Where were you?
May 14th, 1998. I have no idea.
You were on a couch looking at a television set for the final episode of Seinfeld.
I was. Yes, you're right.
You were. Yes.
Oh, my goodness. That was 1998.
And we all remember Babu Bhatt going, very, 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 very bad man. And I remember my sister going, everyone across America right now is going like this.
Controversial ending, I would say.
Yeah,
a lot of people didn't like the way it ended.
Which then was kind of
Fixed
with the Curb Your Enthusiasm finale. If you like Seinfeld, you most likely will enjoy
because
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It really is a continuation of that, and like the fact that they didn't like they made a point to say, oh, people don't like the way it ended.
Yeah. But then they fixed it, which was a beautiful thing. And Larry David, hilarious. Go look him up. He's terrific.
There you go.
Go on Max. He's great. May 15th, 1765, Parliament passes the Quartering Act outlining the locations and conditions in which British soldiers are to find room and board in the American colonies. It required the colonies to house British soldiers in barracks provided by the colonies. If the barracks were too small to house all the soldiers, then localities were to accommodate the soldiers in local inns, livery stables, alehouses, victualling houses. I'm not sure what that is. And the houses of cellars of wine.
Okay.
But in New York, the governor managed to convince Parliament that the assembly had complied. And in Massachusetts, where barracks already existed on an island from which soldiers had no hope of keeping peace, British soldiers followed the Quartering Act's injunction to quarter the soldiers in public places, not in private homes.
Yeah.
Within these constraints, the only option was to pitch tents on the Boston Common. And, of course, that led to the Boston Massacre because the people rebelled and everything.
Now, is it in the Constitution that says it's illegal to quarter
in
military?
Our Constitution?
In our Constitution,
I believe it is.
Right?
Yeah,
part of the
it's one of the
Bill
articles.
Of Rights one of the articles of the Constitution.
But of course, that Boston Massacre. 5 rock-throwing colonial riders were killed, and any residual trust between Bostonians and the resident redcoats was done. And that, of course, was one of the reasons for the American Revolution.
It was.
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
May 15th, 1800, President John Adams orders the federal government to pack up and leave Philadelphia and set up shop in the nation's new capital, Washington, D.C. After Congress adjourned its last meeting in Philadelphia on May 15th, he ordered the cabinet to make sure Congress and all federal offices were up and running in their new headquarters by June 15th, 1800, and Philadelphia officially ceased to serve as the nation's capital as of June 11th, 1800. Wow. Adams and his wife would not move in until November, but of course they were only there for 4 months because he was the outgoing president. And in December, Abigail Adams wrote to a friend later that she had to line dry their clothes in what eventually became the East Room. So apparently she was not too happy.
Not too happy with
the new setup.
New digs were not good, yeah.
And here's one for you, my friend.
All right.
May 15th, 1928, before Steamboat Willie, Mickey Mouse debuts in a test screening of, do you know?
Oh, Plain Crazy?
Plain Crazy.
Right.
Very good.
Oh, my goodness. I had to go deep in there. Yeah.
That was amazing. Good job. The 6-minute silent short animation shows Mickey piloting a plane with Minnie, who escapes his advances by parachuting away using her bloomers.
There you go.
See that?
Got to do what you got to do, folks.
Let's see. May 15th, 1972, George Wallace was shot while campaigning for president in Laurel, Maryland. As a result, he was permanently paralyzed from the waist down. Yeah. Now we come to May 16th. During the American Civil War, this is one of those things that are kind of like, ooh, I don't know how well this might go over, but
all right,
we're going to do it. May 16th, 1862. During the American Civil War, Union General Benjamin Butler, military governor of New Orleans, issued his Woman Order, declaring that any Southern woman showing disrespect for Union soldiers or the U.S. would be regarded as a woman of the town or a prostitute.
Oh, my goodness.
This and other controversial acts
showing disrespect, really?
Yeah.
All right.
But this and other acts by Butler set the stage for his dismissal as military governor in December 1862. So that was a very controversial order.
Yes.
Here we are, May 17th, 2 dozen merchants. I'm sorry, let me give you the year.
The year.
The year is very important.
This is.
May 17th, 1792, 2 dozen merchants and brokers established the New York Stock Exchange.
Oh, wow.
In good weather, they operated under a buttonwood tree on Wall Street. In bad weather, they moved inside to a coffee house to conduct business.
Oh, my goodness.
Who would have thought?
Business at a coffee house.
It's a great time.
You have a couple of a couple of coffees, and all right.
And,
Good stuff.
Was it trade some stocks and stuff?
Yeah, there you go.
May 17th, 1875, the first Kentucky Derby horse race took place at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky.
All right.
What's the deal with that? May 17th, 1939, NBC airs the first televised sports event, a college baseball game between Princeton and Columbia, shot with a single camera and broadcast to a few hundred TV sets in New York.
Wow.
How cool is that?
Cool.
Big one, May 17th, 1954, in the Brown versus Board of Education, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously ruled that segregation of public schools solely on the basis of race denies black children equal educational opportunity, even though physical facilities and other tangible factors may have been equal. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. Yeah. Thurgood Marshall had argued the case before the court, and he went on to become the first African-American to be appointed to the Supreme Court.
Awesome.
So I love the connection there. How
Very
cool is
good,
that?
Yeah.
May 17th, 1989, you might remember this, crowd of protesters estimated to number 1 million marches through the streets of Beijing calling for a more democratic political system. Just a few weeks later, the Chinese government moved to crush the protesters. On the night of June 3rd to 4th, tanks and heavily armed troops advanced toward
Tiananmen Square.
Opening fire on or crushing those, which I can't even... I mean,
so it started this week.
But that led to the Tiananmen Square.
Okay.
And,
Wow.
I don't know too much about that. I thought they didn't, kill anyone, but apparently they did. That's just awful.
They did. They absolutely did.
All right, and then I threw this in there for pop culture. And,
all right.
May 17th, 2000, the final episode of Beverly Hills 90210, which premiered on October 4th, 1990, airs its final episode. Donna Martin and David Silver finally say their vows, and on and off again couple Kelly Taylor and Dylan McKay reunite as the curtain closes on the show.
Wow. Did you ever watch that show?
Oh, I love that show.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I never watched it. Never watched at all. Never, ever. I wouldn't be able to tell you anything about it.
Oh, I mean...
that was the actual zip code for Beverly Hills.
I wasn't as good with, the later seasons, but, the high school and maybe, the early college ones... And then I kind of trailed off with it. Yeah, but
cool.
So that's all I got.
Well, there you go.
The week of May 11th to 17th.
Just all that stuff.
That's all it was.
Just a little bit. Yes. Very cool.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Jim.
You're welcome. My
as
pleasure.
usual. And again, a reminder I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, you can listen to and watch, because we have some videos. You can listen to and watch other older episodes of This Week in History on the podcast by going to our website, mcplpodcast.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little magnifying glass search bar. Click on that, type in This Week in History, and all of This Week in History will be listed there for you.
We learn, you learn. It's a beautiful thing.
And if you are on the channel watching us here on YouTube, we have two great things. Besides This Week in History, which again you can search for, we have History Bites. It's something that Mr. Ward here does. What is that, twice a month? Once a month?
Once a month now.
Once a month now, yeah.
Yep. Sometimes depends
twice,
on the month,
If there's something special coming up. So you can watch those. They're little, we'll say 15 minutes or less.
15 minutes or less, definitely.
Or less, little bites of history, a little nice presentation that you can watch here on the channel. And speaking of that, if you liked what you saw today, hit like, hit subscribe, so this way, and hit the notification bell, so this way you know when we post a new podcast or a new History Bites.
Yep.
So thank you so much for joining us this week. For Jim Ward, I'm Sal DiVincenzo. We'll see you on the next show.